Commander Zethkar of the Hegemony Fleet stared at the blue marble hanging in the void before him. His 6 eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical displays showing this primitive world called Earth. The humans had no idea what was coming for them. "Sir, all battle groups are in position," reported his aide, Lieutenant Vexoth. 300 warships ready to commence planetary bombardment." Zethkar's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. The Galactic Hegemony had conquered 47 worlds in the past century. This would be number 48, and by far the easiest. The humans barely had spaceflight capability. Their weapons were chemical-based projectiles and crude explosives. They hadn't even developed energy shields or plasma cannons. "Begin the assault," Zethkar commanded. "Show them the price of existing in our territory." The first wave of Hegemony ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. Plasma cannons charged and energy beams lanced down toward major population centers. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, all were targeted for immediate destruction. But something unexpected happened. The humans were ready. As the alien ships broke through the cloud cover, thousands of missiles erupted from hidden silos across the planet. But these weren't the primitive rockets the Hegemony had detected in their reconnaissance. These were something entirely different. Weapons that moved faster than anything in the alien database, guided by targeting systems that locked onto Hegemony ships with impossible precision. "What are those projectiles?" Zethkar demanded as his tactical officer's face went pale. "Unknown technology, sir. They're moving at incredible speeds and—" The officer's words were cut short as the first missiles struck home. The lead Hegemony destroyer, the mighty Kethvaran, shuddered as 3 human missiles punched through its shields like they were paper. The ship's hull, made from the strongest alloys known to the galaxy, cracked and split. Secondary explosions rippled through the vessel as it plummeted toward the Pacific Ocean. More missiles followed. The humans had been preparing for this day longer than anyone realized. While the Hegemony had been watching primitive chemical rockets in public displays, humanity had been secretly developing weapons that defied their understanding of physics. Kinetic bombardment systems that could accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. Electromagnetic pulse weapons that could fry alien electronics from orbit. And most terrifying of all, weapons that seemed to learn and adapt in real time. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the underground command center beneath Colorado's Rocky Mountains. Her fingers flew across holographic displays as she coordinated Earth's defense. The weight of humanity's survival rested on her shoulders, and she felt every life hanging in the balance. "Ma'am, we're getting confirmations from all sectors," reported her communications officer. "The railgun installations are performing beyond specifications. We've already taken down 37 enemy vessels." Sarah nodded grimly. Humanity had learned the hard way that they weren't alone in the universe. The first alien probe had been detected 15 years ago, followed by increasingly bold reconnaissance missions. Rather than announce first contact to the world and risk panic, a secret coalition of Earth's governments had begun the most ambitious military project in human history. They called it Project Aegis. Every major military power had contributed. American orbital weapons platforms, Russian kinetic bombardment systems, Chinese electromagnetic cannons, European missile defense networks, Japanese precision guidance systems, all integrated into a planetary defense grid that the aliens never saw coming. "Enemy ships are adapting their approach," warned the tactical officer. "They're spreading out, trying to minimize target concentration." "Then we adapt too," Sarah replied. "Activate the hunter-killer satellites. Let's show them what human ingenuity can do." High above Earth's atmosphere, hundreds of seemingly innocent communication satellites suddenly revealed their true purpose. Solar panels folded back to reveal weapon systems. Guidance thrusters activated as each satellite transformed into an autonomous combat unit. The Hegemony ships found themselves being stalked by swarms of small, highly maneuverable opponents that struck with surgical precision. Commander Zethkar watched in growing horror as his invasion fleet was systematically dismantled. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were winning. Ships that had conquered star systems were being destroyed by a species that supposedly hadn't even achieved faster-than-light travel. "Sir, we're receiving distress calls from Battle Group 7, his communications officer reported. They're under attack by some kind of AI-controlled swarm. The humans have deployed thousands of autonomous fighters." "How is this possible?" Zethkar demanded. "Our intelligence reports showed they were barely capable of interplanetary flight." What the hegemony hadn't understood was humanity's greatest strength, their ability to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. When faced with the knowledge that hostile aliens existed, humans hadn't panicked or given up. They had done what humans always did when threatened. They had prepared to fight. The space battle raged for 6 hours. Hegemony ships that had expected to find helpless prey instead found themselves outgunned, outmaneuvered, and outfought. Human weapons that should have been centuries behind alien technology proved devastatingly effective. Where the aliens relied on overwhelming firepower and superior numbers, humans used precision, adaptability, and tactical brilliance. As the hegemony fleet began to retreat, Commander Zethkar found himself alone in his flagship, surrounded by debris that had once been the pride of the Galactic Empire. His crew was dead. His ship was crippled. And approaching his position was a single human vessel, sleek, predatory, and utterly alien to his understanding of what these primitives should be capable of. The human ship opened a communication channel. A female voice spoke in perfectly translated hegemony standard. "This is Captain Chen of Earth Defense Command. Your invasion has failed. Surrender now and you will be treated according to the laws of war. Resist, and you will share the fate of your fleet." Zethkar looked around his shattered bridge. 300 ships had been reduced to burning wreckage. The humans had lost perhaps a dozen satellites and a few fighters. It wasn't just a defeat. It was a rout. For the first time in his military career, Commander Zethkar of the mighty Galactic Hegemony surrendered to what he had thought were primitives. As human marines boarded his ship, he realized he was about to become something he never thought possible: a prisoner of Earth. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, Commander Zethkar found himself in circumstances he could never have imagined. The detention facility where he was held wasn't a torture chamber or a dark prison cell. It was a comfortable room with a bed, desk, and even access to human entertainment media. The humans, it seemed, took their laws of war seriously. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a human xenobiologist, visited him regularly. She was small by hegemony standards, barely reaching his lower chest, but her mind was sharp and her questions were pointed. Today's session would change everything. "Commander, you've been with us for half a year now," Elena said, settling into her chair across from his desk. "You've seen how we live, how we think, how we organize our society. I'm curious about your observations." Zethkar's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The humans had been studying him as much as he had been studying them. What he'd learned had shaken his understanding of the galaxy to its core. "Your species is impossible," he said finally. "By every metric we use to judge civilizations, you should have been easily conquered. Your technology was centuries behind ours. Your population was scattered across a single world. You had no unified government, no central command structure. You should have fallen in hours." Elena nodded encouragingly. "But we didn't. Why do you think that is?" "Because you planned for failure," Zethkar said, the revelation still startling to him. "The hegemony conquers through overwhelming force. We find a species, evaluate their capabilities, and deploy sufficient firepower to crush all resistance. It has worked for over 1,000 years. But you prepared for an enemy you had never seen, using tactics we had never encountered." What Zethkar didn't tell her was how profoundly this had affected him. The hegemony was built on the principle of superior force. The strong conquered the weak. It was natural law. But humanity had turned that law on its head through sheer preparation and ingenuity. In the months since his capture, Zethkar had learned about human history. Wars that lasted decades. Conflicts where smaller forces defeated larger ones through superior strategy. Civilizations that thrived by adapting rather than dominating. It was unlike anything in hegemony history. "There's something else," Elena said, her tone becoming more serious. "We've been monitoring hegemony communications since your defeat. Your empire is not taking the loss well." Zethkar's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "3 more fleets are being assembled. The Hegemony Council has declared humanity a Class Omega threat. They're planning to sterilize Earth completely rather than attempt another invasion." Elena activated a holographic display showing intercepted communications. Zethkar read the orders with growing dread. The next attack wouldn't be an invasion, it would be total annihilation. Planet-killer weapons, stellar engineering to destabilize Earth's sun, the complete elimination of the human species. "How long do we have?" Elena asked. "Based on these deployment orders, 18 months, perhaps 20, Zethkar said quietly. "But why are you telling me this? I am your enemy." Elena stood and walked to the window overlooking the Rocky Mountains. Snow was falling. Something Zethkar had never seen before his time on Earth. His homeworld was a desert planet where such phenomena didn't exist. "Because I don't think you are our enemy anymore," she said. "Not really. I think you're someone who's been forced to see that everything he believed was wrong, and I think you want to do something about it." She was right, though it pained him to admit it. Watching humans for 6 months had shown Zethkar a different way of life. Instead of ruling through fear, humans led through inspiration. Instead of demanding obedience, they earned loyalty. Instead of seeing differences as threats, they used diversity as strength. The door to his quarters opened and Captain Sarah Chen entered. She looked older than when Zethkar had first seen her during his surrender. The weight of commanding Earth's defense had aged her, but her eyes still held the same fierce determination. "Commander Zethkar," she said formally, then took a seat. "I have a proposition for you." "I'm listening." "We know about the incoming fleets. We know the hegemony won't make the same mistakes twice. They'll come prepared for our weapons, our tactics, our strategies. We estimate our chances of survival at 12%. Zethkar's mandibles clicked in surprise. "You're remarkably calm for someone facing extinction." Sarah smiled grimly. "Because we're not planning to face extinction. We're planning to do what humans do best, adapt and overcome. But we need help. We need someone who understands hegemony technology, tactics, and weaknesses." "You want me to betray my own species?" "I want you to help us save 2 species," Elena interjected. "Because if the hegemony succeeds in destroying Earth, where does it stop? How many more worlds will they sterilize when they encounter unexpected resistance? How many civilizations will they wipe out rather than risk another defeat?" Zethkar considered this carefully. The doctor was right. The hegemony's response to losing a single battle was genocide. It revealed a fundamental weakness in their entire philosophy. They couldn't adapt to new challenges, only escalate their responses until they achieved total dominance. "What would you need from me?" he asked finally. Sarah leaned forward. "Everything. Ship designs, weapon specifications, military protocols, chain of command structures. We need to know how the hegemony thinks, how they fight, and most importantly, how they can be beaten. And in return, we offer you the chance to be part of something different. Not conquest, but cooperation. Not domination, but partnership. Earth is preparing to take the war to the hegemony, and we could use allies who understand that there's a better way." Zethkar sat in silence for long minutes, considering the implications. Everything he had been taught said that helping enemies was the ultimate betrayal. But everything he had learned about humans said that helping others was the ultimate virtue. Finally, he spoke. The hegemony fleet will approach from the Tau Ceti vector. They'll use stellar interference to mask their approach until they're within bombardment range. Their flagship will be the World Breaker, a dreadnought-class vessel capable of cracking continental plates with a single shot. Sarah and Elena exchanged glances. This was more intelligence than they had hoped for. But knowing their approach won't be enough, Zethkar continued. You'll need new weapons, new strategies. The hegemony will expect your orbital defenses this time. They'll be prepared for your kinetic weapons and electromagnetic pulses. You need something they can't prepare for. Like what? Elena asked. Zethkar's mandibles clicked in what humans had learned was his version of a smile. Like hegemony ships fighting against hegemony ships. I can help you capture and reprogram enemy vessels, turn their own weapons against them. But more than that, I can teach you about hegemony psychology. Their greatest weakness isn't technological, it's cultural. They cannot conceive of genuine alliance between species. They see only dominance and submission. Go on, Sarah said. If humanity can forge alliances with other hegemony enemies, other conquered worlds, you won't just be defending Earth. You'll be leading a rebellion. The hegemony has ruled through fear for centuries, but fear breaks when people realize they can fight back and win. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. What Zethkar was proposing wasn't just survival, it was revolution. A complete upheaval of the galactic order, led by a species that had only just learned it wasn't alone in the universe. It won't be easy, Zethkar warned. The hegemony will respond to rebellion with even greater force. They'll commit their entire military to crush any uprising before it spreads. Sarah stood and extended her hand to the alien commander. Then we'd better make sure we're ready for them. Zethkar looked at the offered hand for a moment, then reached out and shook it. The gesture was purely human, but its meaning transcended species. It was the beginning of an alliance that would reshape the galaxy. The Second Battle of Earth began exactly 18 months after the first, just as Zethkar had predicted. But this time, the hegemony faced an enemy they could never have anticipated. High Admiral Korathon commanded the largest fleet in hegemony history, 1,500 warships, including 12 planet killers and the massive World Breaker dreadnought. His orders were simple: erase humanity and their homeworld from existence, leaving no trace that they had ever existed. Target acquisition complete, reported his weapons officer. All planetary bombardment systems charged and ready. Korathon studied the tactical display. Earth hung before them, seemingly defenseless. The humans had learned from their first victory and hidden their orbital defenses better this time, but the hegemony had learned too. This fleet carried specialized scanning equipment designed to detect and neutralize human weapon systems. Begin systematic bombardment, Korathon commanded. I want this world reduced to molten slag within the hour. The World Breaker's main cannon charged with energy sufficient to crack continents. Planet-killer ships aligned their weapons for maximum destruction. 1,500 warships prepared to unleash concentrated firepower that could devastate entire star systems. But as the order went out to fire, something impossible happened. Half the hegemony fleet opened fire on the other half. "What is happening?" Korathon roared as explosions erupted throughout his formation. Hegemony ships were attacking hegemony ships with devastating precision. "Sir, we're reading human life signs aboard the attacking vessels," his sensor operator reported in stunned disbelief. "Somehow they've taken control of our ships." What Korathon didn't know was that Zethkar had spent 18 months teaching humans everything about hegemony technology. More importantly, he had helped them understand hegemony psychology. The hegemony's greatest strength, Their absolute hierarchy and unquestioning obedience had become their greatest weakness. 3 months earlier, human special forces teams had begun infiltrating hegemony shipyards and supply stations. Using intelligence provided by Zethkar and assisted by growing networks of alien sympathizers, they had planted sophisticated computer viruses and recruited crews who had begun to question the endless cycle of conquest. Captain Chen, now promoted to Admiral of Earth's Defense Forces, watched the battle unfold from her command ship hidden in Earth's asteroid belt. Beside her stood Zethkar, no longer a prisoner but an honored ally bearing the rank of strategic advisor. "Phase 1 complete," reported her communications officer. "We've successfully turned 30% of the enemy fleet. Phase 2 is ready for execution." "Do it," Chen ordered. Across the solar system, what appeared to be empty space suddenly came alive with activity. Hundreds of ships decloaked, not human vessels, but captured and retrofitted hegemony cruisers operating under human command. Each ship broadcast the same message in dozens of galactic languages. "This is the free fleet of liberated worlds. The hegemony's rule of terror ends today. All species deserve freedom." But the real surprise came when additional ships appeared from hyperspace, vessels of alien design but flying alongside the humans. The rebellion that Zethkar had envisioned had taken root faster than anyone had dared hope. "Admiral Chen," came a transmission from the lead alien vessel. "This is Fleet Commander Sarasavel of the Antarian Liberation Front. We stand ready to assist in the fight for freedom." More ships arrived. The aquatic Satoni, whose homeworld had been strip-mined by the hegemony. The crystalline Vorthak, whose people had been enslaved to build hegemony weapons. The insectoid hive queens of the Zephyr cluster, who had watched their colonies burned for refusing to submit. What had started as humanity's desperate attempt to defend their homeworld had become something far greater. A galactic uprising against tyranny. High Admiral Corathon found himself commanding a fleet that was rapidly destroying itself. Ships turned against each other. Crews mutinied. Allied vessels attacked from every direction. The overwhelming force that should have guaranteed victory had become a liability. "Sir, the Worldbreaker is reporting system failures," his aide reported frantically. "The human virus has infected our command and control networks. We're losing operational control of the entire fleet." Corathon stared at the tactical display in growing horror. In less than an hour, his unstoppable armada had been reduced to scattered groups of ships fighting for survival. The humans hadn't just defended their world, they had turned the hegemony's own power against itself. "How is this possible?" he demanded. The answer came from an unexpected source. Commander Zethkar's voice echoed through the Worldbreaker's bridge via an open communication channel. "Because you never understood what you were fighting, Corathon. You saw humanity as another primitive species to be conquered. But humanity's greatest weapon isn't their technology. It's their ability to inspire others to be better than they thought possible." On the bridge of the human flagship, Zethkar continued his broadcast to the entire hegemony fleet. "I was like you once. I believed that strength meant domination, that power meant control. But humans taught me that true strength comes from cooperation, and real power comes from lifting others up rather than keeping them down." His words reached not just the hegemony ships, but broadcast across the entire galaxy through hijacked communication networks. On 100 worlds, in 1,000 slave camps, among countless oppressed species, beings heard a simple message. Resistance was possible, victory was achievable, and freedom was worth fighting for. The Second Battle of Earth lasted 6 hours, but its effects would reshape the galaxy for centuries. When the fighting ended, less than 200 hegemony ships remained intact, and most of those surrendered rather than face complete destruction. High Admiral Corathon sat in his damaged flagship, surrounded by debris that had once been the pride of the Galactic Empire. Just as Zethkar had 18 months before, he now faced surrender to what he had considered inferior beings. But when Admiral Chen's voice came over the communication system, it wasn't a demand for submission. It was an offer of partnership. "Hi, Admiral. Your war is over, but ours is just beginning. The hegemony's reign of terror has lasted long enough. We're offering you and your crews the chance to be part of something better, a galactic community based on cooperation rather than conquest, on mutual respect rather than domination." Koreth An looked around his shattered bridge, then at the tactical display showing hundreds of ships from dozens of species working together as equals. For the first time in his life, he began to understand what the humans had accomplished. What would you have us do?" he asked. "Help us contact every world the hegemony has conquered. Help us spread the word that freedom is possible. Help us build something better." 1 year later, Zethkar stood before the newly formed Galactic Council on the neutral world of Haven. Representatives from 50 species sat in the Great Assembly Hall discussing trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, and peaceful exploration initiatives. It was everything the hegemony had never been: diverse, democratic, and dedicated to the principle that all intelligent life had value. As the newly elected Secretary of Defense for the Free Worlds Alliance, Zethkar often reflected on the irony of his position. A former hegemony commander now dedicated to preventing the rise of any future hegemonies. But perhaps that was fitting. Who better to guard against tyranny than someone who had once served it? In his office overlooking Haven's capital city, he kept a small hologram of Earth, not as a reminder of defeat, but as a symbol of hope. Humanity had taught the galaxy that being strong didn't require making others weak, that being powerful didn't require making others powerless. The hegemony had ruled through fear for 1,000 years. The Free Worlds Alliance would endure through hope for far longer. As Zethkar prepared for another day of building a better galaxy, he smiled in the way humans had taught him. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but also new possibilities. And for the first time in his life, he was fighting not to conquer, but to protect the right of every being to live free. The lone survivor of the hegemony's greatest defeat had become the architect of the galaxy's greatest hope.